All right, guys, we're talking about slope today. So, slope of a line, if that line is going up and to the right, that slope is positive.
What if it's going down from left to right? Would that be negative?
Yes, absolutely. Good job. So if you've got a graph and you have a line that's going down from left to right, as also said there, that would be a negative slope. Okay? You've got a coordinate plane. And you have a line that is going straight across. It's horizontal, like that. That would be zero slope. Okay, so horizontal. Up and to the right, positive. Down and to the right, negative. Flat, horizontal. That's a zero slope. Okay, zero slope there. And then one other case. If you have a line that's going straight up and down, vertical, that's called an undefined slope. All right, so positive slope going up and to the right, negative slope going down and to the right, zero slope, horizontal, undefined slope, straight up and down, okay, vertical. So be able to recognize those. By just looking at a graph, you should be able to say, oh, well, that's going to be a positive slope. I should be able to recognize that by looking at a graph, okay? Now, let's talk about the slope formula. Slope formula is going to be used when you actually want to find the actual slope of a line between two dots or 2 points on that. So when we talk about slope, we talk about it as rise over run, how much you go up or down versus how much you go left and right. Okay, rise is on top, run on the bottom. And what we're talking about when we talk about slope formula is taking two ordered pairs. So we might have one ordered pair called x1, y1, and a second ordered pair, x2, y2, okay? Excuse me. M is the letter that we use to talk about slope. When we talk about slope-intercept form, M is the slope. I'm not sure why they picked M and not some other letter. Maybe there's some Greek word that starts with M that means slope. I don't know really why they picked M. But it's stuck, and we're talking about M. So if we're talking about rise, which letter in an ordered pair goes up and down, X or Y? Y. So the rise is your change in Y's. So you would subtract your Y values. And I'm going to do Y2 minus Y1 on top. So it's the change in Y, the rise, over the change in X, X2 minus X1. Now, it doesn't matter which one you call X2 and Y2 and which one you call X1 and Y1, as long as your ordered pairs are kind of lined up vertically. The X and the Y that go together are lined up vertically. The X and the Y that go together are lined up vertically. You can get it in, it's not going to change anything about how your answer goes based on that. So you don't always just have to say the second one minus the first one. If it works better for you to do the first one minus the second one, that's fine. You'll get the same answer out of that, okay? So that's the formula we're going to use. You need to know that formula, okay? As in memorize it. I'm not going to give it to you on the quiz. I'm going to give it to you on the test. You need to know that formula. If you write it down as many times as I write it today, you'll have it memorized before lunch. I promise. Okay? All right, so we're going to practice finding the slope. So that's our job, is find the slope. Example A. Here are two ordered pairs, 3, 5, and 6, -1. We're going to find the slope of the line that would connect those two dots. Okay, so we're going to use the slope formula. Y2 minus Y1 or X2 minus X1. Plug in the stuff you know. Which Y value do you guys want to start with? 5 or -1? -1, it's fine. We'll start with it. So -1, and then it's always a minus, and then the other Y value. So -1 minus 5 on top. Since I started with -1 as the Y value, what X value do I have to start with? 6, the one that goes with it. So it'd be 6 minus 3 on the bottom. And then we just work that out. -1 minus 5 would be -6. And then 6 minus 3 on the bottom would be 3. And then we reduce that fraction if possible. So what's that reduced to be? -2 or -2 over 1. Okay. That's a negative slope. So which direction is it going? Down and to the right. Down and to the right. Think about the direction it's going. Okay, so not bad. Easy stuff there. Let's go back up. Example B. And say we had these ordered pairs. -7, +9, and 13, -4. Let's find the slope between those two. So M equals Y2 minus Y1, X2 minus X1. So which Y value do you want to start with? If we start with -4, then we do what? Subtract 9, right? And on the bottom, what X value has to go first? 13 minus -7. Same as adding 7, that's right. So -4 minus 9 would be -13. 13 minus -7, same as 13 plus 7, which would be 20. Be 20. So -13 over 20 does not reduce. So that's what we get as our slope. So the rise would be down 13, and then we would go over 20. We start doing that on a graph later on. Okay. Questions about it, A or B? Let's do this one. Here's our two ordered pairs, 6, -1, and 4, 5. Let's find the slope. So if I start with 5 minus -1 on top, what do I have to start with on the bottom? 4 minus 6. That would give me 5 minus -1 is 6. 4 minus 6 would be -2, and that reduces to be -3 over 1, or just -3. Not bad. Pretty easy thing. Okay. Example D. 7, 12, and -5, 12. Find the slope between those two. Y2 minus Y1, X2 minus X1. 12 minus 12 on top. Does it matter which X value I start with? No, because the y values are the same. So I'm just going to do 7 minus -5. What's 12 minus 12? 0 over 12. What's 0 divided by 12? 0. That has a 0 slope, which means the line is what? Horizontal, straight across. Horizontal line. Let's say we had -7, +8, -7, +24. I want to find the slope of the line that connects those two dots. Y2 minus Y1, X2 minus X1. Which Y value do you want to start with? -7 is not a Y. So 24 is what I would probably start with. +24 minus 8. That's a little more natural to subtract than 8 minus 24 is. And then on the bottom, minus -7. So that'd be 16 over 0. Can we divide by 0? No. So that's undefined. Which means that the line looks like what? Vertical line, straight up and down. Okay. A little limerick I've used for, well, I've been out of school 16 years this year. Took Algebra 1 as an 8th grader, so that'd be 20 years ago. 0 under the line is undefined. It's, Miss Patricia Campbell taught me that when I was in 8th grade here, 1996. 0 under the line is undefined. That's the way I've remembered it forever. So, yeah, it is really 0 on the bottom is undefined. 0 on the top is 0. Okay, so the 0 under the line is undefined. That'll help you out as far as remembering that. So finding the slope between 2 points, not too bad. Now let's get up to Algebra 1 level. Okay, because this is stuff you've done this stuff before. This is not anything new. Okay, so let's get up to where we're actually using some of the stuff we did in Chapter 3 to find some things that are missing. Okay, so what we're going to do is find the missing coordinate. All right, so let's say we had, letter I'm on, F. X3 and 6,5 with the slope being 2/3. We want to find X, find the missing X, okay? So I'll show you how to do these. These are not bad. It's actually, really easy equation if you set it up right. So let's think about setting it up right. Our formula was M equals Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. All right, so when I look at that, here's the thing that you need to look for when you're setting these up to make it easiest on you. What's missing in our ordered pairs? An X. So I'm going to always put that missing one in there first. Okay? So my missing one is an X, and I'm going to put that on the bottom right here. So what Y value do I have to start with up here? Y value 3, because it goes with the X. And then this is -6 on the bottom, and then up top we got -5. All right, so that creates this little proportion is what it ends up being, because that's equal to the slope. Because this is the slope formula, it's equal to the slope, which is 2/3. So I'm gonna put that over here. Okay. X 3, 6, 5. Okay, so whatever's missing, I'm gonna put in there first. Okay. Now, the next thing to do is simplify it, because 3 minus 5 you can work out, right? That's negative 2, right? Now, that's a proportion, and we solved those in chapter 3. How do I solve that? Cross multiply. Yeah, that's right. So I'm going to multiply negative 2 times the 3, and then 2 times x minus 6. So that'd be negative 6, and then it'd be 2x minus 12. Where did I get 2x minus 12? Yeah, I've distributed the 2 to both of those. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 6 is the minus 12. That's the slope that they told me of at the beginning. They're going to tell you there's 4 things there. There's a slope, there's 2 x coordinates, and then 2 y coordinates. They're going to tell you 3 of those, or well, actually 4 of the 5 things. They're going to tell you what they are. And then we just solve that equation, which you guys know how to do. 2x would equal positive 6, and then divide by 2, x is equal to 3. And that's the missing coordinate. Okay. So that's what we're finding. Easy enough. Let's do example G. Let's say they tell us that one of the ordered pairs is negative 3, negative 10, and the other ordered pair is 5, and the missing piece y, with a slope of negative 2. Excuse me. Okay? Slope formula. Now let's plug in the stuff we know. What's missing in the ordered pairs? A y. So I'm going to put that in there first. And then that would be minus negative 10 up top. So I always put that, and even if it's not the second ordered pair, I'm always just going to use that first. Y minus negative 10. And then on the bottom, what has to start here? I have to use the 5 first, because I used y in the front. I want to use the 5 in the front here. So 5 minus negative 3. So be careful about putting that in the right order. And it's equal to the slope. What's the slope? Negative 2. I'm going to go ahead and write that slope as negative 2 over 1. That way I still get the cross multiply deal happening. So slope, we always want to think of it as a fraction, even when it's not, doesn't have to be written as a fraction. It could be written as a fraction. And then simplify. So if I simplify that, that's going to be negative 2 over 1 equals, now y minus negative 10 turns into y plus 10. And then 5 minus negative 3 would be, it'd be 8. Yeah, it works out to be 8. And then we've got a nice little proportion to solve. How do we solve proportions again? Cross multiply. This one may be even a little easier since we got a 1 times y plus 10. That's just going to give me y plus 10 is equal to negative 16. That's one step. How much would that be? Negative 26. That's the missing coordinate. Not too bad. Pretty easy, right? Let's do one more and then we're done. Promise you. Here's our ordered pairs. 0, negative 11, and x, negative 6, with a slope of negative 7/8. Put that negative sign out a little further in front so you separate them. So we have an ordered pair, and then we have a second ordered pair with the x missing, and then we have a negative slope. So we've got to be a little careful on that. So slope formula again, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So let's plug in the stuff we know. Well, the x is the missing part, so I'm going to put that first, and that would be minus 0. And then what's the top of the fraction look like? Yeah. Now, when I do a negative fraction, which one's negative, the 7 or the 8? Does it matter? No, pick one. Okay? I'm going to pick the top number. I always pick the top number to be negative when I talk about a negative slope. They're going to write them in your book, though, with the negative kind of hanging out in the front. Just understand, hey, that just means the top number is negative. Just go ahead and default to that. If you want to make the bottom number negative, you can. It's legal to do that. But I just do the top one. That way I don't forget to do it. Okay? So a negative 7/8 would be negative 7 over 8 that way. And then simplify. So what's the top? Negative 6 be 5. And then on the bottom, x minus 0 is the same thing as x. If I subtract 0, it doesn't change anything, does it? If I take $0 from you before lunch, you're not missing any. All right. And then, right. And then now I got a pretty easy cross multiply here. Be 40 and then negative 7x. What's the last step? Divide by negative 7. Negative 40 over 7 is our missing x coordinate. Not bad at all, really. Pretty easy thing. All right, so here's our assignment for today. 4 through 16, you're finding the slope. Number 4, 5, 6, and 7, they have a graph already drawn, but the ordered pairs are written on the graph too. So if you want to find the slope using the slope formula there, you can. It also asks you to tell if it's a positive, negative, 0, or undefined. You should be able to glance at that graph and tell me that. That's the idea of what we did first. And then 8 through 16 is exactly what we did for examples A through E, where you're just plugging them in the slope formula, working it out. And then when you get to 24 through 32, those are like the last few examples where you're finding the missing coordinate. All of those are that style of problem, okay? So that's going to be our work for today. We will have a test on Thursday in this class over chapter 4, talking about graph. We'll do graphing with slope-intercept form tomorrow, so you'll need graph paper tomorrow. Okay, so if you don't have graph paper, try to get some between now and tomorrow, because we're going to graph some lines in slope-intercept form and finish up chapter 4 tomorrow. Review Wednesday, test Thursday. I know several of you will be out Friday on the field trip. What do you mean? That was last week. That was last last Friday. That was the quiz they took Friday. They took that quiz on Friday.
I'm still tired. I didn't get home until 4:30.
Oh, bless your heart. All right, so that's your assignment for today. Okay, that's what you'll be working on when you come back from lunch.